How do the Christians, how do the people of God in a world of chaos, how do we respond? I mean, it's not that we don't take it seriously, but to C.S. Lewis's point, we take it with the right kind of seriousness. We are going to counter the Luciferian political theater with gospel magic. Some people aren't going to like the word magic, and I understand that, but we're playing because even though, it's so funny, right? Even though death is the stakes, life is on the line, we know the God who knows the way out of the grave. And so we can take this whole thing that's going on in our time with the right kind of seriousness that doesn't prevent us from goofing off at times. We're playing a very different kind of game because we know how it ends. We know that he knows the way out of the grave. He is the Alpha and the Omega, who was and who is to come. That's what's so cool about the book of Revelation. It's past, present, and future, just like communion. Communion is we remember what Christ has done in the past. We partake of communion in the present until he comes again in the future. And so it's all encompassing, and we are not overwhelmed by the moment. We're not overwhelmed by this particular. And I will say, it does feel like a strong push of this sort of Luciferian political theater, more so than any time in my life. And maybe I'm paying attention more because I have a podcast and I speak, but it really just does feel like it's more overt. And so this actually does tie in to this whole thing. It ties in the podcast, the theology podcasts, and the Luciferian political theater. But you kind of have to pay attention to what he says. And I will pause it maybe halfway through. So we might set it up like this. And we might set it up like this. And then we might set it up like this.
All-seeing eye of Horus. That's the antidote to the eye of Sauron, by the way. Right, because if you don't use that vision, if each citizen doesn't use that vision, it's replaced by the totalitarian all-seeing eye. Right.
Okay, so did you catch that? If each citizen doesn't use that vision, it's replaced by the totalitarian. It's replaced by tyranny. So each person needs to participate. How do we participate? Well, podcasting is one of the ways we participate. I mean, there's other ways, obviously. But the community that is free, like we just talked about, that looks to Christ, who knows that he has the keys to life and death. He knows the way out of the grave. That community is a special type of community. Grizz's live stream, he talked about using the internet to see one another and to form community, and that's what the podcasting bracket is. And it is a way for each individual to carry their own individual responsibility sort of into a community. And I think obviously the community is more powerful than the individual. But in a world where the attempts have been to use the internet to isolate people, and it's backfiring. The internet, humans are finding a way to use the internet to bring each other together, to find these communities. Paul Vanderklay and TLC is a huge example of that. We are participating in one another's dialogues in a way that has never been possible before. But I would say that because the Spirit of God is what creates the church, the sort of Christian community, and I know this sounds maybe a little bit harsh to I'm not trying to other people or anything like that. I just am speaking from my experience as a Christian. The Christian community is unique in those types of communities. So we'll get into a little bit more of this Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, but I just thought that was really interesting. He talks about the individual and the individual responsibility, and that we as a community of individuals, we sort of have this ability to resist tyranny. And I do see, again, I speak from sort of a biblical Christian worldview, that there is a unique ability to resist tyranny within the Christian worldview. And it sounds like a pie in the sky type of thing, but it's not that we have this future great hope of the heavenly kingdom. We do have that, but that future great hope of the heavenly kingdom is a very real present reality. And that's hard to communicate to people. And so I think it's our job to show it. I think it's our job to display it.
Right. So that's a hell of a thing to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So I wondered. I see. Because I wondered what's motivated you, because you push in so many directions simultaneously. You have to be really highly motivated to do that. And so you figured out that the question, in a sense, was the answer.
Yeah. The question is, or said another way, that seeking greater enlightenment and a better understanding of the universe and what questions to ask about it is something that we can continue to do as a civilization for a very long time.
Yeah, likely forever.
Right.
The question is the answer. Curiosity is the answer. Again, it's that's sort of re-enchantment. There's mystery there. There's more to be explored. That's why I always say, like, always be cautious of an expert in theology. There are no experts in theology. There are only students, and there's always more to learn if that is your quest. If your ultimate quest is God, glory, to find your joy in Him. They're not specifically saying that, obviously, but they're not far from it. And I thought that was interesting.
Exactly. So
depending on how powerful Grok turns out to be.
Yeah. So that's so then I thought, okay, I'll work on things that improve our understanding of the universe. I know now that they say, like, at a base level, well, this is why I actually think we want a population increase, because population increase means that there are more people, that we've expanded the scale.
More brains, man.
Yeah, we've expanded the scale of consciousness. To the degree there are different cultures, we've expanded the scope of consciousness. So that there's
Okay, so I read something here. I talked to this gentleman who done a biography of Marx, and he went and looked at Marx's poetry and drama that he wrote before he wrote the Communist Manifesto, and he found out something very interesting. He found out that Marx's favorite quote from Goethe was a statement by Mephistopheles. It's a very specific statement, and it's a very key statement. Mephistopheles' motivation, so Lucifer's motivation, is predicated on this argument. It said, consciousness is nothing but consciousness of pain and misery. Life is short and brutal and pointless. Therefore, it would be better if consciousness itself was eradicated.
Sounds like Hobbes.
Yeah. Well, so
I had a little Yorkshire Terrier who was nasty, brutish, and short,
right.
so I named him Hobbes.
Perfect. Well,
He had a Yorkshire Terrier that was nasty, brutish, and short, so he named him Hobbes. So you catch that. That is the connection. That is the connection. It is a connection between Marx's ideology and at least the portrayal of the Luciferian sort of rebellious spirit. Marx is connected to this idea from Mephistopheles. Life is nasty, brutish, and short. You might as well eliminate all consciousness, which is a self-destructive spirit. That's sort of something that Jonathan Peugeot is going to reinforce here. So we're connecting Marx to this Luciferian spirit through the character of Mephistopheles, the quote that Marx sort of latched onto here. Now, listen to Jonathan Peugeot kind of explain the tendencies of this Luciferian spirituality. And the reason this is important, you can look at James Lindsay's work on this, but really Marx is in the background of a lot of modern political ideology. Satan's rebellious spirit ends in suicide. It's freedom and rebellion from everything, which is self-destructive and suicidal. That's Jonathan Peugeot's point. But the reason people are confused at what is going on in politics today is they haven't linked this. They haven't made these connections. And so what Jonathan is going to point out is once you sort of see it, you can't unsee it.
Revolutionary type of spirituality. It's a Luciferian type of spirituality. It's basically the desire for humans to liberate themselves from all stricture, all hierarchy, all gods. And ultimately, it ends in a suicidal move. It ends up being liberating ourselves from ourselves, or being liberated from ourselves. And so if you understand it that way, as really the image of the Luciferian rebellion, or, the gods,
where you have the knowledge of good and evil.
yeah, or the gods, castrating their father in the Hesiod's cosmogony, like that image of revolution. That's what we're dealing with. It's Promethean, it's Luciferian, and so you can understand almost all of its manifestations, the idiosyncrasy, the collage aspect of New Ageism, where everybody is like, well, I do yoga, but I also believe in reincarnation, and then I still have my rosary, and it's like this kind of weird mixture, because it's all idiosyncratic. It's all whatever I want, whatever I feel like.
Yeah, so there he's saying you're orientating from yourself, right? And then you sort of work yourself out from there. And if you want liberation from everything around you, it's ultimately a self-destruct. It's self-destructive. Why could, in his example, why could somebody sort of grab a hold of all these different worldviews as though they're the same when they're obviously not? It's because we're orientating from the beginning, from the self. It doesn't matter what that worldview says or that worldview, even though those two worldviews would not get together and agree with one another. I'll take little bits from that, I'll take little bits from that, and I'll make it okay because it's just about myself. Eventually, naturalism leads to nihilism, but humanity can't really accept nihilism. Nietzsche kind of worked this out. And so in a nihilistic world, which I think we've kind of been grappling with that, sort of the postmoderns sort of tried to grapple with it, there will be an illogical leap. That's what Schaeffer said, an illogical leap into mysticism. And I wonder if some of that is expressing itself in this sort of overt acceptance of this Luciferian spirituality, even to the degree that it's being accepted into the political theater that is around us. To have somebody who, and this isn't at the RNC, this is just prior to the RNC, coming out and talking about Satanism. It's not very long. Why don't we go ahead and...
No, I'm an atheist for sure.
Not a Satanist.
I'm not a Satanist, no.
And there is a distinction.
Satanists are just, they're atheists as well, but they're just more political.
Okay.
They have like it's actually a very rational, logical religion. They help a lot of people, a lot of women to get abortions.
They help a lot of people. And what does she cite? Of course, they help women get abortions because, again, it is self-destructive. Going back to Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk, they did talk about the depopulation. It is self-destructive. And Tucker Carlson pointed this out in his it was either his Joe Rogan podcast or he sort of fleshed it out later on, I think actually in the interview he did with Sean Ryan, where he basically just said, oh, what you're seeing is an entire system that is anti-human. But what other species goes out of their way to destroy itself? He's like, there's no natural explanation for this, so I have to assume the explanation for it is supernatural. I think he's on to something. He's on to this sort of Luciferian political theater that we're sort of talking about. So